Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Russ Jones.
And Brad Kennan.
We are wide open. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
You know, you can tell my voice isn't great.
Yep.
My youngest doc has been having some health issues, so I've been seeing a lot of patients and losing my voice. So I have to bear with that tonight.
Lemon and honey or something in that, what you're supposed to take, or
I don't know. I got some kind of immune tea with local honey mixed in it.
or some BPC 157 maybe. Mix that
I've been
in.
taking that the last 2 weeks.
I just ordered some, so.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I just ordered it.
Well, why don't you tell everybody what it is?
I don't really know. I heard him talking about it on another podcast, and it's basically helps you heal. It's a sort of a peptide. It's meant for research purposes only, so do not take it. We're guinea pigs in a study, so that's why we're taking it. But I was told that it was actually pulled from the FDA because it was too effective in helping people in certain instances.
It's called the Wolverine.
Yes, absolutely. It helps you regenerate and get healthy quicker.
Yeah, your cartilage and ligaments are supposedly.
Yes.
I started it, I want to say maybe Wednesday. Tomorrow is 2 weeks ago.
Okay. You feeling better?
I don't know. I mean, it's like everything. I never know. You know what I mean?
You're only taking 68
vitamins a day.
Right.
I do all these other theories. I do all this stuff, and I just never can tell.
Right. Exactly. So, well, I don't take that many vitamins. So if I take it, I start feeling better. I did something the other day, and I think I did like face pulls or something, and I hadn't done them in a while. And my lat, literally at the middle of the night, my lat's like this, and I'm like, can't. It hurts really bad. And I had to get up and take some ibuprofen in the middle of the night, and I was like, man, that kind of sucks getting old. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
hey, what about an update? You got an update for us with the drone saga? How she looked defeated when I ask.
My DJI is still supposedly stuck in customs, but because I want to further the search for this bipedal ape, I went ahead and pulled the trigger on another thermal drone, and I bought it on Amazon. I bought the competitor to the one that I've got. They're not sponsoring me, so I'm not going to like give their name out. But it is. I do have it. I have been using it. So far, I've been pretty impressed with it. It's got a 38-minute flight time. It'll do like 30-mile-an-hour winds. It's got a ludicrous mode, if you can believe that, where it will fly 45 miles an hour. So that's
wow.
Cool. Yeah. It will also, it's got a lot of different functionality as far as waypoints, mapping. You know, we could pre-set up, where I live. I've had a sighting not too far away from me. I could literally set up a predetermined path and have this thing fly the path, and I could go retrieve it, 5 miles away at another spot. And then I could watch the thermal video of it.
So how far away is the farthest it can get from you? How many miles?
They're saying 9 miles.
That's crazy.
But I'm thinking that with trees and, I just don't see it happening. I've gotten a mile away so far with my small one. I've gotten, and it was actually, I could have gone further because it tells you right on the screen, what your remote control signal strength is. And my signal strength was still very good. I just didn't feel any comfortable sending it any further.
We know eventually everybody's going to want us to, put up or shut up here. We're going to have to be doing something in the next month or two or.
Yeah. Which, we've had some talks with, we don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but we've had some talks with some other Bigfoot personalities about doing something, and hopefully it comes to fruition, and eventually we can maybe get something that is noteworthy.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be great. So,
yes.
Do you know what would have been cool?
The temperature being warmer,
Yeah.
then 25, and me being off this week hunting a little more.
Right. Well, I will throw it out there that as of the high today will be the low of tomorrow.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it is getting warmer, but I'm still believing that I would love to be on a beach somewhere in the South
No doubt, man.
and not in Ohio. If 13 years ago, when our guest comes on, if he would have had a thermal drone instead of his SLR camera at the time, he may have got some really, really interesting video.
Yeah, I mean,
but they really didn't exist back then. Only the military had them.
That was pretty high tech, camera back then.
Right, exactly. So we're going to bring our guest on. Our guest is Mick Rohr. Hopefully, he doesn't mind I say his last name on the air. I could always edit it out.
I do not mind.
All right. So we met Mick. Did you meet Mick first, or did we meet him together?
I talked to him on the phone, and then when I was going to do a meetup, then you and I met because it was kind of close to both of us.
Right. So it was 13 years ago. It was in October. I do believe, what was it? It was October 10th, maybe 9th, 10th, around in there is when you had.
Yeah, it was October 9th, 2010.
And you had an encounter.
Yes.
So people love to hear about encounters. So go ahead and tell us what happened.
I had been asked by a friend of mine to go do some senior pictures of his son, and it was a very low-key thing. So, I mean, it was very informal. I just had my wife and other son tag along for the day because it was going to be a day-long experience. I was in no hurry. I was going to make a little bit of money from it. And we had initially decided to go to a cemetery because the son wanted some pictures of the cemetery. They had a funeral procession. So it was just a stroke of luck that this kid said, "Hey, let's go out to the lake." And I said, "What lake?" He said, "Well, there's a lake out near Written Rock outside of Amanda." Okay, fine. So we went out there, and it was just a stroke of luck. We ended up out at the lake that day.
So I'm going to explain. When we say lake, a lot of people think giant lake. This lake's not that big from what I remember, right?
5 acres.
It's it's a 5-acre lake. It's if Russ always throws this information out there, I think it used to be owned by Bob Hope at one time, and like the boys club or something. It was a piece of land that Bob Hope attended a boys club, and Bob Hope actually bought it and donated it to the park. It's outside Lancaster, Ohio.
Yes.
And it's kind of a lake that's got a dam. And I remember there's a big hill on the one side, so it's not just like a flat lake. It's kind of enclosed with trees and hills, and so go from there.
The minute we got to that lake, I mean, we departed our vehicles. We had passed Written Rock. I'd been to Written Rock a couple of times in the past. I had no idea there was a lake in that vicinity.
Okay.
So we got out, went through the little footbridge. We went up this hill, and I mean, my wife was 6 months pregnant at the time, so she was pretty big. My 5-year-old, he was 5 years old at the time. He was running around everywhere. And we got up to the top of this little hill, and the minute we got up to the top of this hill, something was throwing rocks in the water. Well,
so when you say the hill, you're talking about the levee right there, correct?
Yeah, it's the flat. It goes up to a flat area.
Yep.
I guess that's what you would call it, would be the levee.
Okay.
The minute we got up to that, something was throwing rocks in the water.
Okay.
And on one side of my head said, that might be a Bigfoot. The other side of my head said, no, you're working. Focus on what you're doing. You're making.
Were you interested in Bigfoot prior to this, or?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Bigfoot to me was something that happened in the Pacific Northwest. I knew about the Gallia. I think it was Gallia County incident back in the late 1800s where that woman was, the guy was attacked by what they called a gorilla. I didn't put much credence into it.
Okay.
I've known all along. I mean, I read Ivan T. Sanderson books. I've always had an interest in cryptozoology and the like, but Pacific Northwest, that's where the Bigfoot were for me.
Right.
Until my realization came after looking at my pictures. But leading up to that point, this creature was throwing rocks in the lake. I took note that day. It was like 80 degrees for October 9th. That was very warm. The woods were really, really quiet. And I
Okay.
always heard, if there's an apex predator in the vicinity, the woods get quiet. I didn't smell anything. I knew they had a terrible smell. I smelled nothing. It didn't make any noise other than to throw the rocks into the water and then end up smacking the tree at the end. I had no inclination. I had no idea there was anything over there except for that throwing rocks in the water. I didn't put much weight into it.
Okay.
I took pictures of the kid. He said, "Hey, let's go down by the side of the lake. There's a little area that's got a little bench there." The kid sat by the lake and I was taking pictures of him. It was behind him throwing rocks into the water. And it didn't stop. I mean, the entire time we were there, it kept throwing rocks in the water.
Okay.
Well, it was behind him. He got scared.
When we say it was throwing rocks in the water, I was there.
Yeah.
These rocks could not have rolled down the hill.
No.
They were landing out in the lake.
They were in the middle of the lake. I mean,
Okay.
it wasn't hitting the edge of the lake. There's a trajectory there.
Okay. All right.
But you couldn't see anything because the leaves are on.
Right. And I did at one point see black eyes, but I didn't put much credence into it. I mean, this was later when I was talking to the dad, because the dad had stayed up on the flat area and he was standing there looking and he said, "There's something over there. I think it's a raccoon."
Okay.
He said, "I
All
see
right.
something with the black."
Wait a second. A raccoon is throwing rocks. And how big were the rocks? I mean, any idea?
They were easily baseball sized, if not maybe basketball. They were big. I mean, it was making an audible. It
Splash.
wasn't natural. Yeah,
Okay.
It was making a nice sound. They were loud.
Okay.
Well, my wife and son disappeared during all this. They went and took a walk up. There's a little path there. I guess it's from the parking lot down to the lake. They had gone up that path. And I was getting a little bit worried. I thought, well, maybe there is something to this. So I stood there with the dad, and the dad kept saying, "There's something over there." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but what is it?" And he said that he had seen a black face, and I'd looked and I'd seen the black eyes. Well, it kept throwing rocks. And the sun was ready to go at that point in time. I said, "Okay, maybe we need to pack up and leave." I think the entire duration was maybe 15 or 20 minutes when we were there. And it didn't stop throwing Rocks. It did not stop.
How far away do you think this thing was from you?
I think, Russ, you had said it was 375 yards or 375 feet or something. I want to say 375 something.
It wasn't yards. It was close enough I could throw a baseball and hit it.
Okay.
I don't recall. I know Brad's got the report there and it probably says it in there, but
we'll pull it up here in a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't very far. I mean, it was, if I had to guess, maybe Brad, maybe 70 or 80 yards or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's probably 7 or 8 yards.
Okay. Well, it was close enough. I did see its black eyes. And when they say cow eyes, they are not lying. They're soulless black eyes.
Okay.
I saw it for a split second, went on about my way, and I thought, okay, there's something hiding in the trees, but it's probably not human. It's probably a raccoon, a raccoon that could throw rocks.
Yeah.
And all the time I had figured it was just somebody messing with us. I was a skeptic. I was 100% skeptic. I thought there's no way this is my luck. Multiple witnesses. We're right off the road. I mean, you can stand on that flat area, look over and see the road.
Right. Let's explain to people, when you say you're on a road that's probably, how far back in the park is it? A mile, maybe?
Oh, farther than that.
Is it? Okay. It's a good ways back. So basically it's kind of this little 2-lane, I would say lane and a half, maybe, road that kind of comes off the main road coming out of Lancaster. You turn into the park and you drive back this windy road, gets back there, and finally you get almost not quite to the back, and there's a lake it's on the left-hand side. You can't even see it from the road because you got to kind of know it's there. You see a little sign, park, and you walk up, and there's, like I said, you walk up to a top 11, and there's this 5-acre lake right there. So anyway,
but it's a very remote area. You know what I mean? The park is there. It's a preserve. No one's allowed off trail. Yeah. It's a few thousand acres. It's cross country, just a couple miles from all the Hocking Hill parks, Old Man's Cave, all those other ones.
Yep. Okay. So go ahead.
We continued. I stood there with the father and looking over there at the other side of the lake. The kid was ready to go, and my wife and son finally showed back up. And I said, "Okay, you guys need to get down to the Jeep." I said, "I don't want you to run, but I need you to walk down to the Jeep carefully, because bear in mind she was very pregnant. Right. I didn't want my son hurt. You know, we had another little boy coming, and I said, I don't want you getting hurt. I need you to go down to the Jeep." Didn't explain to her, didn't say anything about it. But before I left, it started hitting the tree, and it had a stick, a bone, whatever. It was hitting the tree to warn us off. It had just, I guess it had just hit a point in time where I'm done. I'm going to scare you off. So before I left, I took the series of pictures. I took 3 in one area and 4 in another, and I ended up getting the 2 really good pictures. The third picture, you can see it sitting behind the tree. But the first 2, the 2 that you have, actually that's got the most evidence, I believe, on it. That's got the best image. And the thing is, like you say, if I'd had the technology and I had my brains about me that day, I should have stayed and tried to get better pictures. But when I was doing the pictures, the sequence of the images, it was hiding from me. Right. So I don't know if it realized it was being spotted or what, but it was hiding.
So, because we know they're a little cagey and they don't want people to see them anyway.
Right.
So it's a hot day in October.
Yeah.
The leaves are on the trees, which you'll see that in the image here in a minute. Mm-hmm. So you believe it was trying to get down to that lake and get some water, get some to drink, do something.
Possibly. It may have been a sentry. You know, it may have been one of the types that are sentries where they watch out for, like, the family group. I don't know.
Right. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to add this to the report. So I've seen the pictures. In fact, I think at the time, you know, you were using, what kind of camera were you using at the time?
I had a Nikon digital. I can't remember the model, but I had a wide angle lens on it. I didn't have telephoto because I didn't have the money for it.
Right. So you were using this camera to take pictures of a senior picture for a kid. I might have to sneeze here in a second. So what megapixel, what resolution is this camera? You know, it has to be pretty high if you're taking senior pictures.
I think it was 6 megs at the time, which wasn't bad.
I mean, no, it's not. I mean, years ago. Right. It's kind of, we were just talking about that with Russ, is the drone I just bought has a 50 megapixel camera on it.
Oh, man.
So
I would love to have that.
So you can see it. If you go to the report, you can go to the BFRO website. It is a report 28499, which is in United States, Ohio, Fairfield County. It's at a Clear Creek park. You can pull this report up. You can download these pictures. I thought you used to be able to download some high res images off this website, but I don't know if they don't. Yeah. So here it is. They do have the original pictures are still there, which maybe I don't know if I want to do that, but I'll see. Okay, there it is.
And 2, if I'd had the sense about me, I would have taken them not in just JPEG, but I would have done them in RAW format.
Right.
Actually, it's a NEF file format, and I should have known better. But I think I was worried about space on the card, because the card, again, we're talking 13 years ago.
Right.
SD cards were not cheap back then, so I was going on poor guy budget.
Right. I mean, I just bought some 256 gig micro SD cards for $15 off Amazon. You know what I mean? So anyway, you took a series of pictures. Here's one of the pictures. You know, I've seen this picture on your camera. This was not photoshopped. It was nothing was there. And everybody say, what's that term for blob squatch, Russ?
Pareidolia.
So, but if you really zoom in, you can see right here that it looks like to me a nose, 2 eyes, a face, an outer face, a hand holding something. I'm going to say a stick. You know, I know you've talked about a bone, but I'm going to say a stick because sticks are everywhere. Bones are not. So keep it simple, stupid. And let's just use Occam's razor and say it's a bone, or I mean a stick. Right. So if you can't see this up here, you literally go right down here and you can see in the red that is truly something looking. So go ahead and so you took the pictures. Did you just go ahead and leave from there? Is that what you did?
We left, and the guy was haggling me about payment at the end, and he said, "Hey, how much do I owe you?" I said, "Just give me a check. We'll even it up later, or I can just collect later." I said, "I need to get out of this. There's something that may be potentially large up on that hill. I don't want it coming down the trees at us, because we need to get out of the area." That was the point in time where I finally got creeped out. I was done. I said, "We need to leave." His son was losing it. So we said, "We'll just get out." And he said, "Well, he paid me and we left. That was it." But later on that night, here's the thing. I was so skeptical about it. I worked on the kids' pictures. I probably had 120, 150 pictures that I took of him. I sat there most of the night working on, the fine tuning in Photoshop, blemish removal, etc. Well, about midnight, I decided maybe there's something I got on that image, there at the end. I didn't put much credence into it. And I went digging and I said, "Wait just a minute. There's a black shape on here, as you see in the one image." And I started looking at it and I said, "Wait a minute. That's not a human. That's not a raccoon. What is it?" So I'm digging in there, and I was so skeptical. I said, "Let's see if this is a known primate." And I went and tried to match it to any known primate because I wanted to rule out any possibility of hoaxing. I tried to cover all bases with this. And I said, "Well, wait a minute. Maybe I got something we can't explain." I mean, there's not many creatures around Ohio that can hold something like that has opposable thumbs.
Right. So I see your image here, which is it's on the screen. And I ran across this on Instagram the other day, which I don't know. It's probably fake, but whatever.
Yeah.
So if you look, you can see this thing stick its head out, and it's the same black. It's the same brow ridge.
Yeah.
It's the same, kind of hiding, which, like I said, I don't know if this is some guy hoaxing or whatever that is.
I don't know.
But when I saw it, I thought, oh, these two things look somewhat similar.
Yeah.
Now, this looks a little more human to me. Yours looks more ape-like.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't have a sagittal crest on it either. It doesn't have that cone yet.
Right. So, it is what it is. Like I said, but I saw that and I thought, oh, it's kind of the same color and it's kind of neat. And I'll just, whatever.
Mick, am I remembering right that between the pictures that you took, you were able to see a difference that had moved? It was not in the same place. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you look at the sequence of them, you can see it facing, and then you'll see a profile of it, and then you see it sitting. I guess it's sitting behind the tree.
I don't see. That's the thing is,
there is movement.
I don't think we have all the series of pictures up on the report. So, but I know that. So, after this happened, you guys got out of there. You took the 3 or 4, whatever pictures was. You left. Everybody was, just a little shaken.
Oh yeah.
Did you go right to the BFRO website and submit a report, or did you think about it? What'd you do?
I hit up John Bendernagel, Dr. Bendernagel.
Okay.
And I didn't really have a lot of leads at the time because, like Dr. Jones said, they were going to be bringing out Finding Bigfoot. They didn't have, I don't even think it was out yet, but I remember him mentioning it, that this might bode well on the Finding Bigfoot. I went digging. I didn't want to just send it to just anybody.
Sure.
I don't trust my picture with a lot of people, but I am willing to share it for people that are interested.
Sure.
But I didn't want to just send it to any website. And I mean, too, the whole Bigfoot scene was kind of in its infancy. You didn't have Finding Bigfoot. You didn't put on like Netflix and see Bigfoot movies left and right.
Right.
I was kind of at the helm of the whole Bigfoot craze when this happened.
Right.
So I did happen to trip over the BFRO website at some point. I had contacted Dr. Meldrum. I know I'd contacted Bendernagel, and I didn't hear anything back from him. I shared him with Dr. Meldrum, but that's really the only few people that I had contacted.
Okay.
But once I had contacted the BFRO, it wasn't long before Dr. Jones contacted me. It was the next day?
I'm pretty quick.
Yeah.
I watch it every day, a couple times a day.
Right. Exactly. And literally, I won't be on there for months, and I'll get a text from him like, "Hey, there's a report in your area. Go look at it." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. So just so the audience understands how that works, I mean, witnesses can file a report with the BFRO.net, which still gets 1 million hits a month, that website. Wow. And file a report. And then there's investigators in different regions that are watching it. Like I watch all of Appalachian. I do it about twice a day. I'll click on there to make sure there's not a new report. Because, you know, for all I know, so coal miner is going to hit one tomorrow, you know, and I want to be there.
Right.
So, you know, you have to go. But I think the thing I thought was most interesting about this report right offhand is, you know, now it's been 13 years. Mick is well practiced in telling the story. But when I first talked to Mick, he was very afraid. He was nervous, and he wouldn't go back there unless I had somebody beside me and both of us were armed.
Right. So, because I was going to say, I remember you contacted me. We decided, I think it was a Sunday afternoon. We drove down there and we went out there. And I remember he said, you know, do you have a gun? I said, yeah, I had my Glock. I had my Glock. I had a Glock 21, which is a 45 caliber. I remember we parked. It was me and Russ and you, and I think maybe your brother-in-law was there.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So all of us were armed, and I know that you were visibly nervous, which is which is okay. Yes. And I said, Mick, do you want me to go first? You go, yeah, go ahead. I said, okay, I'll go. You know, so we walked up there and we saw the whole thing, and Russ and I remember we walked down at the end of the levee on the end. We walked up on the hill, and in the image, you can see that this thing is by a downed tree. So by this time, it was maybe, so we went out there at the end of October. No, we went out there in November, Russ.
November. What day was that?
It was, I'm telling you, it was the day after the Ohio State Michigan game.
Okay.
I remember.
Because you can see a lot of leaves are on the ground at that point.
Right. So this was the end of November. So it had been a month and a half before we got out there. We got out there. We found the downed tree, which is on the report. You can see it. It is pretty close to exactly where Russ is standing. We did some calculations. I remember, Russ, and I thought that we kind of calculated this thing at about 6-7 to 7 foot around that area.
Right.
So, you know, that's kind of where we calculated how big this thing was.
Yeah.
We found the spot where it kind of was at. There's the picture of the root ball, and it was on the other side of that. You can see that there are rocks littering the ground everywhere.
Yep.
So it was probably throwing rocks. Yeah.
Or dirt clods from the root ball, you know, they kind of falling down there, one of the two.
Yeah.
Correct.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that's interesting is, you know, we always talk about, you know, when you get into Appalachia, and this is in Southeast Ohio, so it's part of Appalachia, it's Hocking County. We have dry falls a lot through Appalachia. And so a lot of times things are looking for water, and, you know, and this is a isolated pond, even though they call it a lake, that, you know, it's probably 3 or 4 miles behind it to a small gravel road. And then in front of it, it's several miles before another road comes across there. I was trying to think of what the name of that road is. It escapes me. I used to road bike that road, but, you know, so it's isolated, and there's a lot of room in there because, you know, no one's allowed to be in the woods there at all. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Brad, but that's where I did that scent study.
Yeah. It was on the other side of the park, though, wasn't it?
No, it was right there.
Oh, okay.
The guy that invented Tink 69 for the people that deer hunt, you know, it was when we were growing up, it was really the only scent that was around, and everybody would buy their little container of Tink 69 and you'd pour it in the woods or on your body when you were out deer hunting. Well, this gentleman had invented it and became a millionaire. And in the meantime, he started another company, became interested in Bigfoot, and Matt Moneymaker had reached out to me and said, hey, you know, why don't you talk to this guy and see if you can work something out? He's, you know, in Northern Ohio. And so I called the guy, and he wanted to form 2 scents. One was a primate scent, and the other was like a curiosity scent. So we literally were on that ridge, not 50 yards from where that was. You're not supposed to be there, but we were. And that guy went up there over a whole weekend, you know, like 3 days, dropping scent, saturating that soil, and then left droppers on it that dropped for about 30 days. And I set up cameras on that one, and then about 80 yards away, we did the other one. And I put a camera on that one as well. And then we did an LDR, long duration recorder, in that same area, and put out some, you know, some gewgaw things like jewelry and that type of thing in that area. And I want to say that I left those cameras in place for over a year, long after, you know, everything had, the scent had disappeared. But it was another one of those situations where, I mean, if you would go to this place and look at that ridge, you'd know that there's going to be a lot of deer each day walk through. It's a hardwood ridge that overlooks a small pond.
Yeah.
And, you know, no one's allowed in there. So there's a lot of deer there in there, but there was 2 different times that it went 8 or 9 days where no deer were in there at all, which, as you know, always makes me suspicious that, you know, something's altering the deer and wildlife movement in that area, you know, because I suspect that, of course, the Bigfoot are hearing the camera. So, you know, they're just avoiding that area as well. And so, you know, when they're in that area, then they're running the deer out of there. You know, they're trying to avoid the Bigfoot in that area or whatever. So, you know, there's still reports that come out of there in that area.
Really?
Yeah.
Good. I've had people tell me about weird experiences out there.
Well, you know, when the road in, there is a rock that leans out over the road. And when I was growing up, of course, I went to high school right there, but that was kind of our cruising course that we did. And, you know, when you go out and have a few drinks or whatever in high school, and that rock was called, some people call it Leaning Lisa, but, you know, they didn't really call that back, you know, in the 80s. But one thing we were always certain of is around Halloween, all the witches that were in the area from Columbus and Lancaster in that area would come down and lean a rock or a stick against that rock. And they believed that somehow it gave them power. And I remember around Halloween, you'd see like, you know, 30 or 40 sticks would be leaning up against that rock.
Jeez.
And on that same road, almost across from that lake, there was a drawbridge, not a drawbridge, but like a, what we call a rope bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to believe that there was a ghost there called Mary, because whenever people went there, a lot of times when they tried to go across that bridge, that something would throw rocks at them.
Really?
Yeah.
So, gee, I wonder what that was.
I know.
Yeah. You know, we just, you know, you think about this, Patterson Gimlin film was 1967.
Right.
And this is, you know, in late 70s, early 80s. So, you know, in Ohio, it wasn't known like that, you know, like we probably had seen the film, but, you know, we didn't know that Bigfoot was really in Ohio, even though there was some historical sightings. It wasn't something we all talked about.
Right.
And, you know, so that was 50 years before, you know, we're out here now, Mick's taking this picture and we're looking around, that there was some Bigfoot activity even then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another thing that I was talking about previously was Bob Hope, which everybody remembers, the comedian Bob Hope. When he was a youth, he lived in the area, and he was a troubled youth. And up on top of the mountain, a few miles away, there was a youth camp there that was called Boys Industrial School. And so they kept troubled youth there, and they went to school there, and they had to do, you know, clean up the roads and that kind of stuff, kind of, you know, an adolescent troubled kind of kid kind of thing.
Sure.
And so I guess it just stuck with him his whole life. But later in his life, he had bought 500 acres, and that's where that pond is.
Okay.
And Bob had owned that. And then, of course, there was another gentleman, which his name is escaping me, and he donated, I want to say 5,000 acres as a nature preserve. So it's part of the Clear Creek park system in Columbus, even though it's what, Brad, like 40 minutes?
Miles.
Yeah, 30 minutes.
30,
Okay,
30 minutes, probably 25 miles. out of Columbus. It's technically part of the Columbus Metro Park system, right?
They keep rangers there during the day, but no one's there at night. And like I said, you're allowed to hike, but you're not allowed to be off trail. I had went in one time, and a lot of times I go in and I ask the rangers for permission to put up cameras and give them wildlife studies. And of course, it's a way for me to get my Bigfoot cameras in there. And he didn't mind. He told me, he said, just do what you're going to do. He's like, we're not supposed to allow people to do it, but I'm not going to look for your cameras.
Okay. Because I remember I don't know if it was you and I and maybe a couple other people. I don't think it was truly a real expedition, but I think we were maybe in that area one time on some of the back roads and up through there at night. And, I think we spent some time in there on some back roads.
Oh, I'm sure probably just
kind of an expedition
out rooting around or something.
Yeah.
I mean, we were always interested in that Hocking Hills region because, it's a great location with all these pockets of caves and, just rock overhangs and, it's steep terrain. No one's allowed in any of the parks except for being on trail.
Right.
I remember a couple times that I was in that park just going to take a walk and, somebody would say, oh, you're not allowed to get off the trail or whatever it happens to be. But, you just have to be in different areas. You just go on rainy days or whatever it happens to be.
Right. Russ doesn't do that, though. He does not skirt the system, and he follows all rules.
Well, let me qualify that. I did talk to that ranger about doing wildlife studies for him. So
right.
I don't think that he would have been that concerned about it.
No, you're not one of the, I think they're worried about, bucktooth hillbillies possibly getting off trail and doing things maybe they shouldn't be doing. But,
interestingly, in many of these nature preserves, and, Brad, you and I interviewed, I better not say her name, but we had a witness on, I can't remember if we used her name or not. It was in a nature preserve down by Coolville. It was on the Finding Bigfoot TV show. That was one of my witnesses.
Okay. Yeah.
And, and that one's just a few hundred acres, so it's apparent that they use these places that people aren't allowed to be off trail. I think that, they've raised their whole life knowing where people go, where people don't go. And, you can have these little pockets hidden around where.
Well, it's even kind of funny that, it's currently deer season in Ohio.
Yeah.
And you can't see a deer. I for the last 2 weeks, I saw deer every single day in cornfields. Big bucks. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Nothing. I've seen nothing this week. And, you go to a park and guess what? The deer are still out.
Yeah.
Because they know that they can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Yes.
And my farm, I join a park and you can literally see the deer running for the hills. Right for that park. They'll be running right across my soybean fields as soon as the shooting starts.
Yep.
They just inherently know. And it's no different for Bigfoot. I mean, the animals, even ones that don't have large cranial carrying capacity, they recognize more people in the woods. They're smelling more humans. And, I think it's just part of life.
Right. Okay.
Hey,
so,
Mick, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You've been around Bigfoot for a while now. I'd say that you probably consider yourself an enthusiast. You're interested in it.
Yeah.
Have you formed an opinion on what you think that Bigfoot may be?
Relic hominid, maybe.
Okay. Which is kind of like saying, just a broad term, like you think it's a, just some type of primate that probably has not been discovered.
Right.
Okay.
There's also, many species of them. I mean, you've got like mine that have a sagittal crest. Ones out in Pacific Northwest do. They reported to have cone heads. Mine doesn't. I mean, you've got the skunk ape, you've got all kinds of types. And I think it's just a lot of subgroups. And I really believe that they're just relic hominids, which I know is a broad term, but what else do you label them?
Yeah.
That they definitely exist. I will go to my grave saying that.
Right.
Have you had any other encounters?
I've had some off encounters. I've had some odd stuff happen. I mean, a while back we were coming home here, and I'm still in Hocking County. I live in Hocking County, and I'm in a hollow. We've had reports on each side of us of suspicious activity. And I was coming home one night. We were unloading groceries, and we heard something. There's an S-curve down the road from us. And as we were coming home, there were about 6 or 8 deer that ran in front of us. We came in, we were unloading the groceries. This was about 10:30 at night. And we heard the coyotes making a lot of noise. They were yapping and doing as they do. One of them screamed, and it sounded like it was being ripped apart. And then it just got really dead quiet. Was it a Bigfoot? I don't know. I mean, I've had the neighbors say that they've heard stuff growling at them up on the hill farther back. And yet I've also heard people on the next road over that's had activity out there. I hear a lot of odd stories where I'm at. I mean, people know that I am into this stuff, and they don't feel like they have anything to hide. They'll come and tell me stories. I've heard many stories, and it's all in this area. Till I find proof, until I have a hardcore experience on my own, I'm never going to really put too much credence into it. I mean, I've heard something moaning up the road from me not too long ago. I've got dogs now I take out in the middle of the night. I work from home and I telecommute. I don't leave the house. I'm up all night. So you better believe my eyes and ears are open.
Oh, yeah.
I've got my 2 dogs. I'll take them out 2 or 3 in the morning. You better believe I am listening. Sometimes I hear some stuff. Is it a Bigfoot? I don't know. Until I see something, if I see red eyes, absolutely, then I'll investigate. But you'd also better believe that I am timid. I don't go running into anything without a flashlight or, a sidearm, because I still am. I've seen the things that can go bump in the night. So I don't, I'm not going to go looking for trouble. But if I see it 30, 40 yards away, fine. I just don't go looking for it.
Right.
Do you ever go out in the woods looking around nowadays?
I really don't, because I had leg surgery a while back, and it's kind of curbed me from doing that. But I will go out to the lake.
You sound like the perfect person we could go with, because we could always outrun you.
Right.
I am bait.
Right.
No, I had a knee replacement, so it's kind of put a damper on a lot of stuff. So I can't really go running or anything. So yeah, I'm good Bigfoot bait now.
Right.
So
it's interesting because that pond, I would say it's probably each day somebody goes up there, maybe a few people or whatever, but you never see very many people up there. And of course, when you're there, you're just allowed really on the one side of the pond.
Right.
There's a couple benches or whatever, but probably 90% of the pond is, maybe not 90%, but close to that is, inaccessible. And, there's a ridge over there. It's the perfect place where, something could watch people.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something like you said, they could, they could have a sentinel animal there to see whether somebody comes up there and, make a noise or whatever, or, that's where they get their water sources when it gets dry.
I don't know if I shared the picture with you that I have a woman had taken a picture out there. She had just went out there and taken a series of pictures. You can see a face in a tree. And what she got, I mean, it was the same general area where mine was. Hers is brown. Mine was black, obviously. Hers is brown. It almost looks like a Wookiee in a tree, for lack of a better term. I mean, I will have to send it to you. I don't know if I had or not.
But I don't think I've ever seen it. So yeah, you could have sent it and we'd take a look at it.
Yeah, she cleared me to share it. So
okay.
She said, hey, I want to stay anonymous. I trust the woman 100%. If I didn't, I wouldn't be. I'd just throw it in the corner and let it sit. Right. But if I didn't trust her, I wouldn't be sending it your way. I got it off the SD card 20 minutes after she got back from the trip. So Photoshop is not in her repertoire. I mean,
did she hear something and she took a picture, or she just went and took pictures?
She said that she heard a growling and she figured it was a dog, but she didn't hear any, nothing threw rocks at her, but she did hear something growling at her. And she said that she had thought it was a dog. This happened not long after I had my incident. I just kept it under my hat because I hadn't talked to her I didn't know if she wanted me to share it or not, but she since then said, yeah, go ahead. Just don't put my name in on it. But I trust her 100%. She like I said, I pulled it right off the SD card. The metadata was intact. Everything checks out. And for that record, I do have my old SD card with the original images on it, intact, retired.
All right.
So have you talked to, I know that you go to some of the larger conferences. Have you, and I know sometimes you have pictures there for people to look at. Have you ever had, say Dr. Meldrum or, Cliff Barrickman or any of that crew look at your pictures?
Yeah, I've had them all look at it. I actually handed it to them. I don't believe in keeping them. If I got something cool, I'm going to hand it out. So I distributed it. Dr. Sarmiento's got it. Pretty much all the big names have got it.
Okay. So did anybody have any comments about it, or?
Bobo had said, it looked like a stick that the Bigfoot was holding. And I said, I have had people look at it in the medical profession that have said otherwise, but that's me. I've had them say it's a femur. And from what I know about human anatomy, it looks like a femur to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to come to blows with anybody about it. It's an opinion.
Well, I mean, as far as overall, do they say, hey, that looks like a primate to, it's not just pareidoid, it looks like a primate.
I've not had anybody except one person try to say that it was fake. And I backed them up in the corner. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I wasn't nice, but.
Right.
I mean, Brad and I went out there and we were very thorough. We went over there. We looked for tracks. We measured the distance. I think people can go on. What's that report number, Brad? Do you have that up still?
No, it was 24899 or something.
But if
it's Ohio, Fairfield County, and there's only 5 reports. So
yeah, BFRO.net. And if you go to Ohio and then look under Hocking County, be able to find
Fairfield.
Fairfield County, yeah.
I'm trying to get one up for Hocking. Give me time.
Well, I mean, we all have, it's like so many other things. We all have reports from all those areas. A lot of us have collected them, but, maybe there's a reason why we don't post them publicly because, maybe we don't want to share the area and we're working it and we have cameras up, or, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen right in that area. I mean, I'm being careful about what I can say, but yeah, I mean, just within a couple of miles of there's, things going on.
28499.
28499
is the report. Yep. I'll put it in the show notes or whatever. When we do the show, there'll be a link in there. Are you referring to somebody that had something happen possibly? Is that what you're talking about, Russ? And then
that was not very far from there.
Okay.
And and I've taken a couple other reports right there at that in Hocking County itself.
Okay.
Everybody might remember that's where the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Conference is just a few miles from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually live about 10 minutes away from that, so I'm close.
Okay.
I mean, it's a typical area that you would see, like in West Virginia, Greenbrier County, which is probably the number 4 county for sightings. You have cornfields, soybean fields backing up to hilly areas, glaciated versus non-glaciated areas. And it's just a good area that you'll find Bigfoot. They like to get on those hillsides, look down in those fields and see those deer. It's inaccessible. People can't get to them quickly.
Right.
A lot of water sources in the hills. They like those spots.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Okay. All right. Any last comments before we look to wrap this thing up?
From me?
Yeah.
Always have a camera. Always have it set to the highest resolution you can do. Because if you're going outside and you're going hiking, take your camera. Always. Yep. And have multiple witnesses if possible.
I think that's some great advice, man.
Yeah, here's the problem. This thing happened to you, and hindsight is always 2020.
Oh yeah.
Always 2020.
Oh, yeah.
So, you look back and you say, man, if I just would have done X, Y, Z, I could have had this.
Yep.
Well, we've all done that. We've all been in situations where we thought, man, if I just would have done this, then look how great it would have been. So
if I could go back in time, I would have said, don't be such a skeptic. Have you a good camera on hand, get you that telephoto lens, and kick it up to a higher resolution.
Right.
You know, don't rely on JPEG. Use that RAW format.
Right.
You could have,
Exactly.
I could have done so much more with the RAW format.
Right.
Well, I mean, can you imagine you're going out there? It's not on your mind, and all of a sudden rocks are being thrown in the water 15 feet. You know.
Right. I didn't go out there looking for it, and I mean, it was like I said, it was just a twist of fate that we ended up out there anyway.
Right.
You know, we weren't planning on going out there. The kid said, "Hey, let's go out to the cemetery." Okay, cemetery had some procession. They had a burial going that day, and I said, "Well, we need to go elsewhere." Kid said, "Hey, let's go out to the lake." Okay, never heard of the lake in my entire life, and I had been out to Written Rock a handful of times beforehand. So figure that out. I mean, it's just, had I known now, or had I known then what I know now, there's no way I would have been out at Written Rock at 1 or 2 in the morning. Ever.
Right.
No.
Hey, Mick, we really appreciate your time and thanks for coming on. And, you know, Brad and I always look forward to seeing you at the different conferences.
Yep. Absolutely.
You'll be seeing me around.
Good to see you, my friend. Thanks again.
All right.
Thank you for asking me. You all have a good evening.
Hey, you too. You got to work. You got to go to work now. So have
12 hours ahead of, 11 hours ahead of me. So,
all right, well, have fun.
Thank you very much. You guys have a good one.
All right. Bye. All right. That was a blast from the past.
Yeah, I know. It's shocking that it was that many years ago.
Yeah. That might have been like maybe the first report we actually went and did it together.
Might have been.
I think so. It's very possible.
Because I remember I wrote something up and I had you read it and see if you know, it sounded right to you and it was as you recalled it. But I mean, I think when you look back on it, there's certain things that we know now in perspective that are predictable, right? I mean, if you're looking at a map and you're in the fall and a year if it's dry and you can find a, 5,000 acre nature preserve that they don't allow people off trail and, it has an isolated water source on it and there's some deer in there, I mean, it's a place that you'd think, well, I should probably go look at this place.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there is literally no place there to find tracks at all.
Right. No.
I mean, you just wouldn't be able to find them.
No, it was very hard ground and it was rocky. There was a lot of rocky and areas and a lot of tree, a lot of cover. So,
Yeah. I mean, every fall I think of places like, when we get a dry section, of course, I'm always considering the snakes too, because they're coming into the water too. But, so which trails you want to walk and, which trails you can get water for your dog on when you're walking. But I mean, I think that all the people that are listening to the show, when you have those time of years, like when we have a lot of wet and it's flooding for a few weeks and all that, then we should be thinking about these isolated creeks that are running, that we can jump up these hollows that are kind of remote and we can look for tracks. And then, when it's dry, then we should be thinking about these water sources that are reliable, that we can go and, spend time looking around, wearing your GoPro, being prepared. I think that's one of the things that, you and I had talked about before, if there was a place that we could go, and we had talked about, one of the wilderness areas in West Virginia. And we were talking about how important it was before we even went to know what we were going to do before, what was the possible evidence that we would encounter, what would we do when we got there, how would we handle this and that. But I think that in our society, people are just interested, they're busy, and they don't have a lot of time, and they just go and there's not a real plan. They're just walking around, they are hitting sticks, cooking bacon, and that's all they're doing. Are you on? So that's about, like I said, it's predictable. It's funny how you look back at that. I never really would have thought about it. But now, 1,000 reports later, I look at it and I think, gosh, I should have been able to see that one was predictable. And so let's just wrap it up, Brian, and we'll call it a day. wideopenresearch.com. You can do the Facebook, look up the West Virginia Bigfoot. Anytime you want to reach out, please like, subscribe. I appreciate everybody holding up with my voice tonight that didn't hold up very well. And Anything else to say about it, Brad? I think I got you back now.
Yeah, you got me back. I don't know. Something happened. I really touched my microphone and everything went dead. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could see you're having problems, but I'm just going to keep talking.
Good. I was like, man, this sucks because I can kind of hear it, but I can't. I was like, man, I don't even know what happened. So it is what it is. No, we're good. Like and subscribe. Or the Bigfoot Doc. It is what it is.
Yeah. Got some good guests coming up. Some exciting things coming up here in the next few weeks.
Yeah. And like I said, after the first of the year, hopefully we got some big announcements to come with some different things we're doing. And
yeah,
we're always chasing Bigfoot, right?
That's right, man. That's what we're doing. Well, thanks everybody. It's good to see you, my friend.
All right. We're out.